It was really good.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Books in Focus. We're going to talk about the new upcoming books, starting with the hot fiction. So yes, we have a new James Patterson coming out.
Are we surprised?
We are not surprised. This is the 16th novel in the series with New York City detective Michael Bennett. So the Michael Bennett thriller series. In this latest book, Bennett has to find a sniper dubbed the Long Shot Killer, who has been killing people around the city. And it doesn't go unnoticed that Bennett's new partner seems to fit the killer's profile. The Women by Krista Hanna is at once an intimate portrait of coming of age in a dangerous time and an epic tale of a nation divided. It's about a 23-year-old nursing student who joins the Army Nurse Corps after her brother ships out to serve in Vietnam. The Ghost Orchid is Jonathan Kellerman's latest thriller in the Alex Delaware series. So psychologist Alex Delaware and detective Milo Sturgis confront a baffling, vicious double homicide that leads them to long-buried secrets worth killing for. In 3-Inch Teeth by C.J. Box, this is the latest in his Joe Pickett series. In this one, a grizzly bear has gone on a rampage, and someone Joe helped send to prison years ago has been released and is out for revenge. The Summer Book Club by Susan Mallory is about a group of 3 female friends who, inspired by the heroines that they read about in their book club discussions, decide to take big chances in life and love. Steve Berry has The Atlas Maneuver coming out. This is the 18th book in his Cotton Malone series, in which retired Justice Department operative Malone unravels a mystery from World War II involving a legendary lost treasure worth billions known as Yamashita's Gold. A.J. Finn has a new book coming out called End of Story. He is the author of The Woman in the Window, which was a really popular book, his debut. This is another one in the psychological thriller vein. You have a dying, reclusive mystery novelist who invites a stranger, who is also an expert in detective fiction, to help write his life story. And the writer becomes obsessed with discovering the truth about what happened to the novelist's first wife and son, who disappeared 20 years earlier. And then lastly is Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. This is the first of a, quote, super sexy sports romance duology. A rom-com about a bad boy professional golfer who falls for his biggest fan after hiring her as his caddy.
Okay.
Hopefully nobody in that book is catty. Sorry, I couldn't help it, guys. So now we have the new best-selling nonfiction. First we have Normal Women by Philippa Gregory. This is described as a landmark work of scholarship and storytelling. This new book chronicles centuries of social and cultural change from 1066 to modern times, powered by determination, persistence, and women. Next, we have Medgar and Merle by Joanne Reed. This groundbreaking, meticulously researched narrative nonfiction tells the story of 2 heroes of the civil rights movement. Reed expertly uses Medgar's and Merle's relationship as a lens to explore the on-the-ground work that went into winning basic rights for Black Americans that still resonates today. The End of Race Policies, The End of Race Politics, I can't read, guys, by Coleman Hughes, is described as a thought-provoking and audacious book that explores the nuances of race orthodoxies of our time and questions how these orthodoxies impact policy. Through careful argument, Hughes dismantles harmful beliefs about race that gives the illusion of racial equity and gives intellectual tools to achieving true equality. Next, we have The Unit by Jamal. I can read. With humor and humility, Jamal shares a gripping first-hand account of his time serving in a military unit whose work is so sensitive and secretive that the unit name itself is classified. It is described as an enthralling and eye-opening book that looks at how America fights terrorism worldwide, and is also an examination of the urgent need for diversity in the military. Cocktails with George and Marcia by Philip Gefter. This new title is a deep dive into the genesis, making, and reception of the movie Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? It's described as a cinematic history of an explosive portrayal of marriage that was groundbreaking for its time. Next we have 2020 by Eric Kenenberger, something. So it's described that the year 2020 will go down alongside 1914, 1929, and 1968 as one of the most consequential years in history. This riveting book explores the events of that year through 7 profiles of ordinary New Yorkers. These stories are told in vivid detail, set against the backdrop of not only the events in the United States, but also abroad. What Have We Here by Billy D. Williams is a memoir. It is him telling his remarkable life story of nearly 8 decades in the industry, from his birth in Harlem in 1937 to him becoming a household name. The actor describes his first forays into stage acting, the development of his career, and the ideals that sustained and carried him through what he describes as a lifetime of dreams and adventures. And then finally, The Holy Grail of Investing by Tony Robbins is the final book in his Finance Freedom trilogy, where he unveils the power of alternative investments. This book provides insight and strategies from a dozen of the world's most successful investors that you can apply to your own life. So that is the new best-selling nonfiction. So, on to the main event. Our first fiction title is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. Our protagonist, Ricky, is good at mostly everything except being a member of the Wilde family. So she jumps at the opportunity to strike out on her own, opening a flower shop in Harlem. One night she encounters a mysterious man who changes her life in unexpected and magical ways. With well-developed characters and a vivid sense of place, this book is described as a swoon-worthy love story set against the backdrop of modern Harlem and with Renaissance glamour and magical realism. The first read-alike I have for this title is one of the author's prior books, 7 Days in June. Eva Mercy is a single mom and best-selling erotica author. She has spent 20 years building a life for herself and her daughter away from the traumas of her childhood, until it comes bursting back in the form of a man who stole and broke her heart, all in 7 days in June. With a cast of well-drawn characters, this sensual romance is both humorous and warm, with keen observations about modern motherhood. And a quick note before I talk about the next read-alike for this book. So Tia Williams, at the moment, is supposed to be coming to the library in April, and we are super excited for that. But just to put that on your radar, mark your calendar. We are really, really excited for it. And on with the show. Next we have, for this read-alike, The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. It is also a heartwarming romance with a dash of magical realism. Florence is a romance ghostwriter, but after a terrible breakup, she believes her career is as good as dead. But dead doesn't mean gone. It's described as a sparkling adult debut. This story introduces you to an eccentric cast of characters and some unfinished business.
The Guest by B.A. Paris. The author also wrote the book Behind Closed Doors, which was kind of her popular debut back in 2016. So this is a psychological thriller. Iris and Gabriel arrive home after a vacation to find that one of their closest friends has been staying in their house after walking out on her husband. Tensions rise as the friend continues to overstep her bounds again and again. Iris and Gabriel get some relief from a new couple to town, but that couple also employ a gardener with a checkered past. A couple read-alikes would be The End of Her by Sherry LaPena. This is another novel, domestic suspense novel. You have a young wife who begins to lose trust in her husband when a woman from his past shows up unexpectedly and starts raising questions about his late first wife. And The Night She Disappeared by Lisa Jewell, another psychological suspense novel. In this one, a writer discovers what might be a clue to the disappearance of a young couple in the forest near her new cottage. Next up, we have a new historical mystery in Laurie R. King's Mary Russell and Sherlock Holmes mystery series. This is book 18, for those of you counting. The series itself begins with a retired Sherlock Holmes kind of taking a then 15-year-old Mary Russell under his wing as an apprentice. In this latest entry, Mary and Sherlock arrive at Holmes's artist son's house in the French countryside to discover that the son and his family have fled the house after an alarming break-in. While Holmes pursues his son, Mary stays in the house where she discovers a crate that contains, among other things, a zoetrope, which is like an old-fashioned lantern thing that you spin and makes kind of motion picture type images. And an old journal written in code, and as it turns out, the journal contains information about a mystery of Holmes's family history. Publishers Weekly says the elaborate family lore King has constructed for Holmes impresses, and she pays longtime readers dividends with a number of satisfying disclosures about the detective's past. So other historical mysteries with female sleuths would include the work of Deanna Rayborn. This is the first in her Veronica Speedwell mystery series, A Curious Beginning. Again, you have a woman private investigator, also set in Victorian England, specifically 1887. And Murder on Pleasant Avenue by Victoria Thompson is one of her books in the Gaslight mystery series, set in early 20th century New York, and in that series you have a main character, Sarah Brandt, who's a midwife. Simply the Best by Susan Elizabeth Phillips. This is a funny and engaging modern-day Cinderella tale. This is the latest in her sports-themed Chicago Stars series. This time the romance is between a sports agent, Brett, and the sister of his biggest client, Rory. That's the sister, not the client. Who have an ill-advised one-night stand at a team party. Rory is a failed chocolatier who lives in her football player brother's shadow, that is. And Brett is a career-driven and successful sports agent. So this is an opposites attract kind of a situation. Adding to the drama, the two find Rory's brother's girlfriend murdered in his house and have to work together to find the brother who has gone missing. Now that being said, I don't get the impression this is dark in tone, despite the murder and the missing brother. Funny and engaging with twists and turns that keep it moving. Newbies to the series and even sports-averse readers will appreciate this modern-day Cinderella tale. So for read-alikes, I brought Out of His League by Caroline Richardson. In this one you have practical risk-averse Gretchen, who has to step out of her comfort zone to take a chance at true love with her favorite baseball player. And then When Stars Collide is an earlier one of Susan Elizabeth Phillips in that same Chicago Stars sports-themed series. In this one, you have an opera diva and a star quarterback who fall for each other while on a nationwide tour promoting a luxury watch brand. Then we have Plastic by Scott Guild. So this is kind of a sci-fi humor type novel. It's a surreal and inventive debut about Erin, a sensitive young plastic girl. or figurine living in a plastic world. The setting is a post-nuclear war society marked by eco-terrorism and state surveillance. People interact largely through apps and social media and regularly turn to virtual reality to check out. This is how Erin spends most of her time as well. It's narrated in both first and third person, and the story is styled as though it were a TV series starring Erin. This is a quote. Guild works the parody and pathos well in this thoughtful entertainment, expertly managing to extract concern and sympathy for the plights of these plastic characters, as human as we are despite their occasionally squeaking leg hitches. An amusing, kind-hearted tale of a troubled, alternate world. You have a lot of different themes in this one, like gun violence, environmentalism, technological disconnection, extremist ideologies, grief and trauma, etc. First read alike is Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu. This is a deeply personal novel about race, pop culture, assimilation, and escaping the roles we are forced to play. And then I also brought American War by Omar El-Akkad, which is his debut novel set during a second American Civil War, and also has a young female protagonist.
All right. The Komagawa Food Detectives by Hisei Wai. This is slightly misclassified as a mystery, but it is at the same time. It's a very unique book. It is the first in a best-selling Japanese series. This is the first time it's been translated into English. It's described as down a quiet back street in Kyoto is a very special diner run by a father-daughter duo of Koichi and Nagara. They are food detectives. Through ingenious investigation, they help their customers recall treasured moments from their past by creating dishes connected to those memories. This book is described as a heartwarming celebration of good food, good company, and what makes life worth living. Just a very gentle, happy read. I mean, that is the happiest of faces. So, the first read alike I have with similar thoughts about recalling the past with food, as well as just kind of thought-provoking story is Tales from the Cafe by Toshikawa. It's embarrassing. Toshikazu and Kawaguchi. This is a story also about a quiet cafe, but in Tokyo, where they have been brewing a very special kind of coffee for many years. It offers customers the opportunity to experience a little bit of time travel. They can tweak certain things in their past. It is described as a beautifully powerful story of people who must face up to their past and understand what makes life worth living. So next, and I would be so sad if this actually happened, is What If All the Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamori, or Kawamura, sorry. It also has, again, a similar focus of what makes life worth living. Our unnamed protagonist is estranged from his family with only his cat, named Cabbage, for company. So he is unprepared for the news that he only has a few days left to live. Before he can get his affairs in order, a devil appears with an offer. In exchange for making one thing in the world disappear, he can have one extra day of life. Again.
Okay, Acts of Forgiveness by Mara Cheeks. This is a freshly told, complex family drama with an intriguing premise that explores themes of family, forgiveness, and leaving a legacy. So this is another debut novel that's set in the near future America, where the first elected female president passes the controversial Forgiveness Act, which is a bill that would allow black families to claim up to $175,000 in reparation money if they can prove they are the descendants of slaves. Single mother Willie Rebel is struggling financially and wants to qualify, but the rest of her family is reluctant to dig up the past. The book has been described as vibrant, moving, powerful, and engrossing. First read alike I brought is What's Mine and Yours by Naima Coster. Two communities react to school desegregation in North Carolina. It focuses on two characters, two mothers, one white, one black, who have themes of family, race, and forgiveness. And I also brought The House Girl by Tara Conklin, which is a novel about love, family, and justice. And it's about an ambitious young lawyer's attempt to lead a class action lawsuit to win reparations for the descendants of American slaves. It's a dual timeline novel that goes back and forth from modern day to pre-Civil War.
So, our book here today is Right on Cue. It is a romance. It is by Fallon Ballard. It is coming out on February 27th. This contemporary romance follows Emmy Harper, an actress turned screenwriter. After a break from Hollywood, Emmy returns to the spotlight not just as a writer, but also as the lead character. However, when her co-star is injured, Emmy must work with her sworn enemy from a decade ago, who she holds responsible for ending her acting career in the first place. Our read-alikes, the first one is Will They or Won't They by Ava Wilder. It is a contemporary romance, or I kind of consider it a rom-com. It is an enemies to lovers contemporary romance that features two actors that love each other on screen but cannot stand each other in real life. Then Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Loren is another contemporary romance. This second chance love story follows Sam and Tate, who unexpectedly reunite in Hollywood 14 years after their whirlwind 2-week romance while on vacation.
Everyone Who Can Forgive Me Is Dead by Jenny Hollander. This is a debut thriller. Charlie has spent 9 long years rebuilding her life after the nightmarish events at her elite grad school on Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, put her in the spotlight as the sole witness to these events. However, when a buzzy film made by one of her former classmates threatens everything, Charlie discovers how much she has changed and the lengths she will go to preserve her life. It is described as a witty, immersive, and well-plotted thriller. So we're super excited for this one to come out since it is Hollander's debut. The first read-alike I have is The Only Survivor by Megan Miranda. It has a similar storyline. It is about Cassidy and her 8 of her former high school classmates who managed to survive a terrible accident. 10 years later, another of their group dies under mysterious circumstances, and Cassidy is determined to learn the truth about their death and the accident itself. It is also described as a well-crafted, slow burn mystery that is atmospheric and full of twists and turns. The other read-alike I have, with a similar going away and coming back kind of storyline, is Jackal by Aaron E. Adams. This is a chilling story of a white town in the Rust Belt where young black girls go missing in the woods. Liz is home for a wedding when the daughter of the bride goes missing near the woods, and as the search gets underway, Liz remembers another incident that is eerily similar. There is evil in the forest, and it is creeping closer. This is described as a fast-paced, atmospheric, and thought-provoking thriller.
Hi, ladies. How are we? All right, this is The Book of Love by Kelly Link. When 3 teens awaken from the dead in their music teacher's classroom, they are given an opportunity to return to their former lives, but with a few caveats. Not only can they not tell their family where they've been for the past year, they must complete magical tasks and avoid supernatural beings who come to town seeking the revived friends, bringing chaos to the town and the lives that the teens are trying to return to. Kelly Link's debut novel focuses on the lives and interpersonal connections the characters wish to recover after their disappearances with this unique and emotional story. Read-alikes, I've brought The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstein. Two young illusionists are bound by magic to forever be engaged in a duel with one another within the circus of dreams. In Ninth House, Alex Stern awakes to find herself the sole survivor of a multiple homicide, her friends all victims to the carnage. She is then offered a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to turn her delinquent life around, but at the cost of spying on a cult composed of rich children. Well, college kids. I also brought Kelly Link's another book by Kelly Link called White Cat, Black Dog, and it is an anthology of more modern fairy tales by her.
Okay. 14 Days is edited by Margaret Atwood and Douglas Preston. Wow, I looked at Douglas and my brain blanked out for a minute. At Douglas Preston. This is a heartwarming collaborative effort from the Authors Guild. It features some of our other favorite writers, including Celeste Ning, Tony Orange, John Grisham, and many others. This story picks up 1 week into the COVID-19 shutdowns. Tenants of a Lower East Side apartment begin to gather on their roof and tell each other stories. Gradually, the tenants who have never spoken before to each other become real neighbors in this dazzling and surprising narrative with a diverse and eccentric cast of characters that looks at the importance of community and togetherness. The first read-alike I have is Night of Miracles by Elizabeth Berg. This is actually the second in her Mason series. It is also similarly focused on how community is important to us and how it can shape us. When a family moves in next door to Lucille, tragedy strikes and the community comes together in the ways she least expects. This novel is described as a delightful, heartwarming story about surprising friendships, community, and how small acts of kindness can change a life with lovable characters that leap off of the page. I also brought the first in that series if you are interested in it as well. The other read-alike I have is Foster by Claire Keegan, also because of its themes of community and close relationships. It is a hot summer in rural Ireland, and a child is taken by her father to live with relatives on their farm, not knowing when or if she will be brought home again. The girl discovers an unspoken something in the new household and community where things are tended to so well. This is described as a piercing story of heartbreak, childhood, loss, and love.
So this is The Road from Bellhaven by Margot Livesey.
And this is a historical fiction novel. It comes out on February 6th. This novel takes place in 19th century Scotland and follows the life of Lizzie Craig, a girl who discovers from a young age that she can glimpse the future but has no ability to control or change what she sees. This coming of age novel is about growing up, falling in love, making mistakes, and getting a second chance in life. The first read-alike we have is Alice Hoffman, The Invisible Hour. It is categorized as historical fiction, magical realism, and fantasy. This combination magical realism and historical fiction novel follows Mia on a journey of heartbreak, love, and time as she compares the similarities of her life to Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. And it contains time travel as well. Then our second one, which I'm sorry, if you want it, you can't take it. I'll put it on hold. It's called The Unmaking of June Farrow. It's by Adrienne Young. It is considered fantasy, mystery, and magical realism. This fiction novel by June Farrow magical realism and fiction collide as June Farrow risks everything to end her centuries-old family curse, all while solving her mother's disappearance and falling in love.
The Foxwife by by Chu. Sorry. It's described as a brilliant exploration of mortals and spirits, humans and beasts, and their dazzling intersections. It reimagines both mythology and folk tales of fox spirits and their habit of luring people to their doom by transforming into beautiful men and women. This is described as a lushly detailed novel and is sprinkled with mysterious deaths, revenge, and the uncertainty of winter. The first read-alike I have is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This is a reimagining of the Chinese myth of the moon goddess Chang'e and Hou. It is described as having lush details, interesting characters, as it explores both Chinese mytho-history and folk tale, and the intersection of celestial beings, mythical creatures, and humans. The other read-alike I have is actually a nonfiction title. It's called The Chinese Myths, A Guide to the Gods and Legends by Tao Tao Li. This is an essential guide to the complex and fascinating world of Chinese mythology. It is an accessibly written guide that not only tells a wide range of Chinese myths, but also explains their significance to Chinese culture. So if you're interested to learn more about fox spirits in general. So Night Watching by Tracy Sierra is described as a razor-sharp thriller about a mother forced to the breaking point when her life and the lives of her children are threatened by an intruder. Our unnamed protagonist is finishing up tucking her children in while a blizzard rages outside when she realizes they are not alone in the house. Together, they quickly hide in an old secret space behind a wall and have to wait for the intruder to leave or to come up with another plan. This is described as an emotionally intense, tension-filled atmospheric thriller. Sorry, there were a lot of adjectives in there, with well-drawn characters about the length a mother will go to protect herself and her children. So naturally, the first read-alike is The Shining. This is the new one by Stephen King, because I'm so excited we now have a copy of it. Of course, a new job at a beautiful and remote hotel seems like the perfect opportunity for Jack Torrance and his family to start over. But nothing is as it seems. Just as the world outside settles in for winter, something inside begins to uncoil in this atmospheric, sinister thriller from the king of horror himself. Pun intended. And then the other read-alike I have is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. And I'm just gonna read a little bit of this book to you. Just Daisy Darker's family were as dark can be. When one of them died, all of them lied and pretended not to see. This is the story of a family that gathers at a remote house on an island just off the English coast. When the tide rolls in, they are trapped, and it seems they are not alone in the spine-tingling thriller. I actually just finished that a couple weeks ago, and it's so good. And then Burma Saeed by Paul, Thorough, thank you. This is an immersive, detailed novel that tells the fictionalized story of how a British officer in colonial Burma, Eric Blair, was transformed into a beloved anti-colonial writer. Anyone want to take a guess as to who that is? Yep, George Orwell. Going into his early experience as a Raj police officer, so he is forced to navigate racial and social oppression, class politics, all while struggling with feelings of self-worth. This is a very dramatic, well-plotted story that helps explain and underscore why he changed his views about British colonial power. And then both read-alikes I have are actually from our nonfiction collection. So these are biographies of George Orwell. So this one is more of a full-ranging biography from that covers almost his entire life. And then this one, Churchill and Orwell, is specific to the 1930s and 40s after he's come back from India and as he starts his writing and really getting into his career.
Our next one is called Hours, a novel by Philip B. Williams. It is considered literary fiction, and it is a little bit of a wild ride, so bear with me on the summary. This epic novel, set in mid-19th century America, combines both historical fiction and fantasy in this compelling story about race and freedom.
In the 1830s, a magical woman named Saint destroys plantations all over Arkansas to liberate the enslaved and bring them to a safe haven magically concealed from all outsiders. However, when problems begin to arise in paradise, some begin to wonder if the community's safety is just another form of bondage. And that comes out on February 20th. And then so for read-alikes, our first one is Let Us Descend by Jesmyn Ward. It is considered historical fiction, magical realism, and literary fiction. It is a fictionalized perspective of American slavery told through the eyes of Annis as she goes on a spiritual journey through the South after being sold by the white enslaver who fathered her in this story of rebirth and reclamation. And then our next one is, these are both from the new shelf, I believe. That one is, yes, they're both from the new shelf. Our next one is Trinity by Zelda Lockhart. It is historical and literary fiction. This novel explores 3 generations of a family trying to overcome their past traumas and rid themselves of the darkness that has plagued their family since the death of the mother spirit. They're a little shrink, but I feel like they all carry kind of like magical realism as they try to reimagine and talk about the history of slavery and how it affects their various families.
All right, Village in the Dark by Iris Yamashita. Oh, I probably butchered that one. Officer Joe Barkowski returns from Yamashita's previous novel to aid Detective Kara Kennedy after she must bury her husband and son for evidence in their murders the year prior. In order to solve a string of murders Kennedy's family fell victim to, the 2 detectives must find a hidden village of women known as Unity, where women disappear to in order to escape abusive partners for good. The journey and investigation becomes perilous as everyone involved has their lives on the line in this edge-of-your-seat adventure mystery. City of the Lost is sort of a prequel to that.
That's good.
Is it good? I'd like to hear more. City Under One Roof. Oh shoot. Sorry. Snowblind by Ragnar Johnson. In a small isolated Icelandic town, a young woman is found half naked and unconscious in the snow as a writer is also found dead. Officer Thor must investigate in a town where no one wants him. And City of the Lost. Detective Duncan flees the mob and escapes to a secret village in the mountains of Canada, which accepts her for the purpose of solving a string of murders that has befallen this safe haven.
Next we have Fatal First Edition by Jen McKinley. It comes out on February 13th, and it is a cozy mystery. It is her 14th, goodness. It is her 14th installment in the Library Lovers Mystery Series, and it follows Briar Creek Library director Lindsay Norris as she and her husband Sully stumble across a rare first edition of Patricia Highsmith's Strangers on a Train, inscribed to Alfred Hitchcock. After returning it to the proper person, when the book mysteriously disappears and someone winds up dead, they must work quickly to clear their names and find the murderer. We have 2 more cozy mysteries for you. Murder at a Cape Bookstore by Maddie Day. Again, if you want it to have to go on hold. And that one follows bicycle shop owner Mac and her book club as they solve a crime in the 5th installment of the Cozy Capers book group mystery series. They need to shorten these series titles. Okay. And then Booked for Death. Again, another cozy mystery. It is the first in a new series, Book Lovers B&B Mysteries, which follows bed and breakfast owner Charlotte as she tries to solve the murder of a local book dealer with the help of her neighbor, a visiting author, and the local book club.
This is The Adversary by Michael Crummy. It's a dark, spellbinding page-turner about a bitter sibling rivalry set in a remote town on Newfoundland's northern coastline in the early 19th century. Just as Abe Strapp is on the verge of solidifying his power over the area's fishing and mercantile concerns. Through an arranged marriage, his sister, the widow Keynes, ruins his plans by exposing him as a degenerate rapist. So opens this compulsively readable and uncompromising novel that serves as a shadowed mirror to our modern politics of grievance and retribution. Library Journal says, using the vocabulary of the time, Crummy tells an unhappy but compelling story of division and strife caused by personal vendettas and animosity. A good pick for readers of historical fiction in which family relations and tragedy play key roles. I brought Barkskins by Annie Proulx as a read-alike. This is another historical sweeping novel, and it's focused on 18th century woodsmen in northern France. The adversary is being described as Crummy's masterpiece. This is also described as her masterwork. And I also brought East of Eden by John Steinbeck, which is a sprawling and often brutal novel that follows the intertwined destinies of two families, especially focusing on the rivalry of two brothers. This is The American Daughters by Maurice Carlos Ruffin. This is another historical novel set in the 1850s, so pre-Civil War New Orleans. Addie, which isn't that the same name as the one in your books? Character Addie, is that? Okay, maybe I misremembered. Addie and her mother, Sanit, are inseparable, and both are enslaved to a businessman in the French Quarter of New Orleans. When the two of them are separated, Addie loses hope until she's befriended by the owner of a local inn, Lenore, who is a free black woman. Lenore invites Addie to join a secret group of spies working against the Confederates called the Daughters. The American Daughters is a novel of hope and triumph that reminds us what is possible when a community bands together to fight for their freedom. I brought The Island Queen by Vanessa Riley. It's a story based on the real life of Dorothy Kerwin Thomas, who was a woman born into slavery, who eventually bought her way to freedom and built a legacy of wealth and power as an entrepreneur. And also Yellow Wife by Sadiqa Johnson. It's a book about a young slave woman who's taken in as the wife of the owner of an infamous jail in Virginia. Next up is Dixon Descending. Another debut here, a powerful debut about a man named Dixon Bryant, a once high-level runner who just barely missed qualifying for the Olympics. At his brother's prompting, Dixon decides to leave behind his orderly life and job as a school psychologist so that the two men can attempt to be the first Black Americans to summit Mount Everest. Tragedy occurs during their climb, and Dixon struggles to return to normal life as he manages recoveries both physical and emotional. With detailed writing, vivid imagery, and a narrative alternating between past and present, Dixon Descending is a hard-hitting story about ambition, survival, and responsibility. Some Go Home by Odie Lindsay is about an Iraq war veteran who has to deal with past trauma while trying to start a new life as a Mississippi homemaker. And We Came Here to Forgive by Andrea Dunlop is about an Olympic skier who loses everything, seeks to reinvent herself in Buenos Aires among a colorful group of expatriates. Owning Up by George Pelecanos? I don't know. He normally writes novels. This is actually a book of short stories. 4 blistering novellas drawn together by themes of strife, violence, and humanity. Pelecanos' portraits are characterized by shades of gray, resisting the mold of heroes and villains, victims and perpetrators, good and evil. At once streetwise and full of heart, Owning Up grapples with random chance, the bind of consequence, and the forked paths a life can take. And that's from the publisher. So two similar authors who also write crime fiction similar to Mr. Pelecanos would be James Lee Burke. He has a long-running mystery crime series featuring New Orleans detective Dave Robichaux. This is just one selection from that long-running series. And also Dennis Lehane. This particular book is called The Drop, and it's about a former criminal who has made plans for a new life, but those fall apart when he becomes mixed up in a robbery gone wrong.
All right. What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher is a direct sequel to What Moves the Dead in the second in the Sworn Soldier series. Veteran Alex Easton finds himself in another supernatural horror, fleeing the Usher Manor and moving to a hunting lodge in his home country of Galatia, where Easton must face a new monster that stalks his new home and village at night, and finds that the creature is not exclusively hunting the waking world. Kingfisher masterfully crafts a dead and dreary atmosphere and vile visual descriptions. I'm so pleased to have What Moves the Dead become a series. For my reader likes, I brought Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Caw. It's very short, but packs a lot. A wedding party investigates a haunted house where ghosts of the home and ghosts of their past destroy their lives. And A Haunting on the Hill by Elizabeth Hand. Playwright Holly spends a month at a haunted manor for inspiration with her new girlfriend in tow, as well as a troupe of actors, all with ghosts of the past intermingling with the ghosts of the manor.
Okay, This Disaster Loves You by Richard Roper. This one's set in the UK. It's a story about a man who tries to find out what happened to his wife, who disappeared 7 years earlier. Although it was years ago that Lily disappeared from the pub that the two co-ran, Brian has never given up hope that she will return one day. After coming across a TripAdvisor profile that he thinks might belong to Lily, Brian leaves his deteriorating pub to try and discover the identity of this mystery reviewer. A female travel companion joins him along the way, and Brian will have to choose between living in the past and taking a chance on something new. The story alternates between past and present, with frequent flashbacks. There are strong themes of love and finding yourself, and it's being described as funny, bittersweet, and heartwarming. Charm City Rocks by Matthew Norman is another heartwarming romantic comedy in which a single dad meets the former rock star crush of his youth, and The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. In this one, two exes are forced to confront their past choices when they are stuck in the same car on the way to a mutual friend's wedding.
The nonfiction on our list. Look Again by Tali Sharot. This new book investigates why we stop noticing things around us and how good and bad things become routine. This is described as groundbreaking work based on decades of research, exploring routine and illuminating how we can reignite the spark of joy, innovation, and recognize where improvements are needed. It's described as a stimulating, accessible read that explains how the brain processes and filters stimuli. Both read-alikes I have focus in that same area and looks at how humans understand awe and how to recapture that. So the first one is Awe, the new science of everyday wonder and how you can transform your life by Dasher Keltner. It looks at how we quantify that feeling of awe and how to use that and understand that feeling to help bring about positive change in our life. Enchantment, Awakening Wonder in an Anxious Age by Catherine May is written with candor and warmth, and it invites the reader to come with May on her journey to reawaken her sense of inner wonder and awe at the natural world around her. It's described as blending a lyrical storytelling style with sensitivity and empathy. American Women by Kate Rogers. This is a biography. It's a meticulously it's a biography of a lot of different people. It is a meticulously researched book from New York Times White House correspondent Katie Rogers. It is the first definitive exploration of the changing role of 21st century First Ladies. It culminates in the tenure of First Lady Jill Biden. With sharp insights and dozen of first-hand interview, Rogers traces the evolution of the role from ceremonial figurehead to powerful political operator. Both read-alikes I have deal with First Ladies. The first is Untold Power by Rebecca Boggs Roberts. This tells the complex and compelling story of how First Lady Edith Wilson secretly took over the presidency after her husband's stroke. And then the other book I have is America's First Ladies by Diana Dixon Healy. This spans from Martha Washington to Nancy Reagan. It is a sensitive yet humorous study that examines the roles of First Ladies in both American politics and culture.
Super Communicators by Charles Duhigg. Duhigg narrows down and identifies the three core types of conversations we're really having anytime we speak with others: practical, emotional, and social, and how we can utilize this knowledge to truly connect with others. Unlocking the secrets to communication and making it work to the best of our favor. Duhigg's Super Communicators may teach you how to build and craft meaningful and emotional conversations in order to make any relationship so much stronger, as well as how to convey who you truly are. I also brought How We Talk by N.J. Enfield, an inside look at the technicalities of our language and how bad words are much more polite than you think. And Boundaries, face to face, a look at confrontational communication and how to make the best of an aggressive or uncomfortable talk.
Grief is for People by Salone Crosley. This is both a memoir and a self-help book. It is a deeply moving and surprisingly suspenseful portrait of friendship and grief, as the author explores multiple kinds of loss and the unavoidable stages of grief. With disarming wit and poignant writing, she describes her own journey dealing with the pain and confusion of losing her closest friend to suicide. Both books I have here deal with grief. The first one, Bittersweet, is by Susan Cain. It is through a mixture of research and storytelling that she helps us explore why sorrowful experiences can be valuable to tools for teaching us creativity, compassion, and leadership. And then There Is No Good Card for This by Kelsey Crow and I'm just gonna read the little blurb because I love this one, and how it's described is written in a relatable, we've all been there in that deer in headlights kind of way. This book isn't a spiritual treatise on how to make you feel better or a scientific argument about why compassion matters. It is a helpfully illustrative guide to effectively and compassionately take you through step by step, past the point of paralysis about thinking about how to help somebody through a difficult time and actually doing so. It's both really good books, very thought-provoking.
Wasn't touching the card, right? Alright, Smoke and Ashes, A Writer's Journey Through Opium's Hidden History by Amitabh Ghosh. Ghosh explores the history and effects that opium trade had on the India and China, as well as Britain and the rest of the world in the late 1800s and forward, and the lives of the sailors and soldiers involved in the trade companies. How the drug affected people as a whole in those countries and the long-term effects even to this day, and how the drug has shaped the world's economies and colonialism across the world. Ghosh delves into the broad and the fine details as he looks into the world built around the trade of opium. I brought Rita Likes, Chasing the Dragon by Christopher Cox. Christopher Cox journeys physically into the Golden Triangle, a deadly region of Southeast Asia where poppy, opium, warlords, and drug cartels reign. And then I brought Milk of Paradise by Lucy Inglis, and Opium by Dr. Halpern and Listine. Both are about the long history and effects that opium has had on the entire world from Mesopotamia to today.
Okay, so last we have My Side of the River by Elizabeth Gutierrez. It comes out on February 13th and it is her autobiography. In this compelling new autobiography, Elizabeth Gutierrez describes her experiences as a US-born daughter of immigrants as she is forced to care for herself and her younger brother at 15 years of age when her parents are unexpectedly forced out of the US and back to Mexico. It is with sheer willpower and determination, along with her passport, that Elizabeth is able to persevere through these trying years without the support of her family, all while finishing her own education. You guys should be proud. I could have pulled a whole shelf. I could have pulled 10, but I limited it to 3. So our first one is The Death and Life of Ada Hernandez. It is a border story by Erin Bobrow Strain. It is nonfiction and it is biography. And this one, journey into detention centers and immigration courts and follow Ada, an undocumented teen mother, take on the US immigration system, all while trying to get back to her family. Then we have this little one, Dear America, Notes on an Undocumented Citizen by Jose Antonio Vargas. It is nonfiction and memoir. Journalist Jose Vargas talks about the many issues that undocumented immigrants face and the struggles of trying to keep a family together. And then last but not least, My Boy Will Die of Sorrow, a memoir of immigration from the front lines by Efren C. Olivieres. It is also nonfiction and it is a memoir. It is a personal perspective from a human rights lawyer who fought against family separations in South Texas. It is also mixed in with his own perspectives and his own story. It's sad that we have to have as many books on this as we do. If you want more, let me know. I can always pull up my list and find more, but there are quite a few. Like I said, it was very hard to narrow it down to these 3, but I felt like these 3 paired best with this one, and I think I'm gonna read this one when it comes out as well.
All right, thank you all so much for joining us for Books in Focus and our,
You guys did good.
yeah, our 2 new
Oh,
Books in Focus friends. The next one will be on February 13th. We will see you then.
Day before Valentine's.
Yep. There will be some romance reading.